That's when Cuz came with just a couple vicious punches. The chin called neighborhood crip the temple, and then Cuz hit me somewhere right here, Cuz I couldn't breathe.
Young Threat went from working with Kendrick Lamar to being charged in a serious case that shocked everyone. Today, we're breaking down the intense street war that led to his downfall. Young Threat first caught attention after Kendrick Lamar featured him on the GNX album, giving him a shot at making it big. But even while chasing his rap dreams, he still had deep ties in the streets. Working with Kendrick could have pulled him out of that chaos. But by January 2026, everything changed. The news dropped that Young Threat had been arrested in connection with the death of a man named YCA 80 Bands, which reportedly happened back in October 2025. YCA 80 Bands was affiliated with the Main Street Group, but he crossed into A-Tray Hoover territory and ran into major trouble at a local smoke shop. Young Threat reps the A-Tray Hoovers, and rumors say this might have been about getting payback for one of his friends who had lost his life in a previous incident involving the Main Street crew. According to multiple sources, Main Street members were involved in another tragic situation near the same block where YCA 80 Bands lost his life. Apparently, YCA 80 Bands had rolled through the A-Tray's area to prove he wasn't scared of the tension. But things spiraled fast. People claim Young Threat found out where he was and allegedly pulled up on him, leading to that fatal moment. No one on the outside really knew what was brewing, but after YCA 80 Bands passed, the streets started heating up again. Word spread that the main streets from 98th were moving in response, and the 84th branch got called out and tried to distance themselves. The long-standing issues between Main Street and the A-Tray Hoovers were far from over. Even women from Main Street were getting involved in the chaos. Back in 2023, a woman reportedly tied to Main Street pulled up with 2 firearms and took the life of a Hoover affiliate sitting in his car at a gas station, a move that made the feud even more heated. For years, Main Street and the A-Tray Hoovers had been clashing non-stop, but nobody expected Young Threat, someone with real music industry connections, to get mixed up in something this big, especially with cameras everywhere. Now, he's sitting behind bars facing serious charges. Authorities say a second person was also hurt in the same situation, but managed to survive. Young Threat is currently locked up with no bail, but this isn't the first time he's faced heavy trouble. He grew up around the A-Tray Hoovers, and his family was reportedly part of that lifestyle. From a young age, he was surrounded by street life and started getting into trouble early on. At first, it was just small-time run-ins, but right before graduating high school, he ended up serving 2 years in juvenile detention. Even though he was active in the streets, Young Threat still went to school and even played football. But during his senior year, he found out the cops were looking for him, so he tried to stay under the radar, sometimes even showing up at school while on the run. One day, the principal called him to the office, and that's when he realized it was a setup. The cops were waiting for him. It turned out that Young Threat and one of his friends had been breaking into houses, but when his friend cooperated with the police, Young Threat took the fall and served 2 years. When he got out, he switched gears and started focusing on music. By 2019, he was building serious buzz with tracks like Who Gon' Slide and Hit Different. It looked like Young Threat was finally leaving that old life behind and heading for stardom. But the streets had a hold on him that he just couldn't shake. Even after finding some success in music, Young Threat was still spending most of his time deep in the streets. His momentum in rap started fading fast once he got locked up again. He got picked up for another robbery case out in the Inland Empire, and while he was behind bars, his world started crumbling. Friends were getting caught up, some were losing their lives, and his buzz in music was dying out. But while Young Threat sat in prison, another A-Tray Hoover rapper named Treyway 6K started rising up and carrying the torch for their set. Treyway was known for going hard, both in real life and on the mic. His songs talked about living fast, staying loyal, and not being afraid of the outcome. He famously rapped, "It's Trey Gang for the win, I'ma die young," or "Stack it out in the pen." Big Bro got 15 years when his life just began. Forget the tears, stand tall, and get your man. Those lyrics became an anthem for the A-Tray Hoovers while Young Threat was locked up. Then in 2021, Young Threat got out on parole and immediately linked up with Treyway 6K for music. They dropped tracks like Out on Bail, showing the world that they were back outside and ready to reclaim their spot. But even though Young Threat had already caught 2 serious strikes, he was still deep in the mix, still sending shots at his rivals through his lyrics. On one track, Young Threat rapped, "They dissing just to get a mention. We was breaking down the safe, chasing every digit. My bro do anything just to get it, run fast and keep it with him. We pull up with things. They got issues. The energy was wild. Raw street talk mixed with real stories. The A-Tray Hoovers had long-standing issues with multiple other crews across the city, from different Crip and Blood sets, and they made sure everyone knew they weren't backing down. On the same record, Treyway fired back at the system itself, saying, "Police asking me, you with the Crips or the Bloods?" I tell them, on the real, you better give me my own cell because I'm not cool with none of them. The A-Tray Hoovers also had a reputation for running into rappers who came to LA without checking in. On top of that, Treyway's little brother was one of the teens connected to the Pop Smoke case back in 2020. He was young at the time, and while it's still unclear if he was the one directly involved in the act itself, he did end up convicted after taking a plea deal. Even with all that drama, Treyway 6K was gaining traction in the rap scene, dropping music that reflected the streets he came from. But he claimed that people in the industry were trying to freeze him out because of his brother's involvement in the Pop Smoke situation. Still, Treyway pushed through and kept building momentum, especially when teaming up with YoungThreat in the studio. Their chemistry was undeniable. But then Treyway made a huge mistake. He was caught on camera attacking one of his rivals, and that clip spread fast. He got arrested soon after, but didn't seem to slow down. Even while in court for that case, Treyway spotted another rival and started a fight right there in front of law enforcement. Somehow he got off relatively light, only serving a 6-year sentence for everything that went down. Unfortunately, Treyway wasn't the only one from YoungThreat's circle who ended up behind bars. After getting out and returning to music, YoungThreat linked up with another rapper named Jab 5. Jab 5 was from the 107 Hoover Criminals and had already made headlines for clashing with Crip Mac from the 55 neighborhood Crips. Jab 5 was known for handling his business, and even Crip Mac admitted that Jab 5 got the best of him when they fought while locked up. Jab 5 was putting in serious work in the studio, trying to make it out of the streets and turn his life around. But before he could really take off, he got locked up again. Rumors started flying that Jab 5 was facing a life sentence for a murder case, but that wasn't entirely true. Some people were claiming he was responsible for the death of a man named Shady Blue, who was connected to the Rollin' 60s, but that turned out to be false. What was true, though, is that Jab 5 ended up getting hit with 7 years behind bars for an attempted murder case, and he won't even be eligible for parole until October 2026. While YoungThreat's close friends from the rap game were getting locked up one by one, he was still recording, but his passion wasn't the same anymore. The drive he once had for music started fading. He spent most of his days hanging out in the neighborhood, not really pushing to make it in the industry anymore. But everything changed when Kendrick Lamar decided to reach out to him. Kendrick had been showing love to underground LA talent and brought YoungThreat onto his G-Next album. That cosign was massive.
And that's when Cut came with just a couple vicious punches. The chin called neighborhood Crip the temple, and then Cut hit me somewhere right here. Cut, I couldn't breathe.
Suddenly, YoungThreat was everywhere in the headlines. On the project, he rapped, "I'm in the field for real, UCLA Bruins. They asking how I do it, how a young dude so fluent. I kept my mouth closed and I ain't never leave no witness. DOA up on the scene, tell him YoungThreat did it." That was the first time a lot of hip-hop fans ever heard of YoungThreat, and that bar alone had people talking. He later said that Kendrick tapping in with him gave him real motivation to go harder with his music career. On another track, Dot, he even shouted Kendrick out rapping, "Thought it was over. It's not. Thought I wasn't changed till I popped out with Dot." After that, YoungThreat tried to keep the momentum going, dropping new projects and videos. But by 2025, things weren't hitting the same. Most of his songs barely cracked 10,000 streams on Spotify, a big drop from what people expected after working with Kendrick Lamar. One feature, even from a superstar, doesn't guarantee long-term success, and fans were surprised to see how quickly YoungThreat's buzz faded out. The last time he really made headlines in music was back in January 2025, when his video shoot got shut down by the LAPD. After that, everything seemed to spiral. Now, he's facing life in prison, and the A-Tray Hoovers don't have anyone left making noise in the rap game for them. The set still pops up in headlines, but mostly for the wrong reasons. Recently, some A-Tray Hoovers have been drawing unwanted attention online, practically giving away information themselves. One of them even filmed himself blowing up a rival's car, allegedly from the Rollin' 60s, and posted the whole thing on Instagram. Just a couple of weeks later, other members were caught on camera roughing up an older man who was said to be from the 66 East Coast Crips. Then, in August 2025, the A-Tray Hoovers Hood Day celebration turned tragic when violence broke out. The A-Tray crew had thrown a big party, but things quickly got out of control. LAPD rolled up and shut it down at first, but after the cops left, the crowd kept the event going. A few hours later, everything erupted. Reports say shots were fired, 8 people were hit, and tragically 2 of them didn't make it. Rumors spread that one of the fallen was a well-known A-Tray Hoover member who lost his life at the scene. Not long after the chaos, things got even worse. One of the women who had been rushed to the hospital didn't make it. The tragedy hit deep, and what really broke hearts across the community was finding out that she was the mother of 3 sons who were all connected to the A-Tray Hoovers. Losing her sent shockwaves through the set. It wasn't just another headline, it was personal. On top of all that, the A-Tray Hoovers were already dealing with multiple lawsuits and constant pressure from every direction. Tension was at an all-time high, and people close to the situation started saying that's exactly why YoungThreat was on edge. So when word spread that YCA 80 bands was seen hanging around the block, YoungThreat allegedly snapped. It was like everything he'd been holding and finally exploded. The fall of YoungThreat feels like something straight out of a movie. Fame, loyalty, revenge, and tragedy all tangled together. One moment, he was working side by side with Kendrick Lamar, spitting bars that had the whole city watching. The next, he's sitting in a cold cell, waiting for a trial that could decide the rest of his life. It's wild to think that someone who once had a golden ticket out of the streets ended up right back where it all started. When you look back, it's clear that the streets never really let go of him. Even with fame on the line, even with doors opening in the industry, he couldn't walk away from the life that raised him. The A-Tray Hoovers gave him his name, his crew, his inspiration. But they also gave him the chaos that ended up consuming everything he built. Every move he made felt like a tug of war between his talent and his ties to the block. And now, the entire set is in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. From online videos that brought heat to real-life violence that shook neighborhoods, it seems like every few months another story breaks about someone from the A-Trays getting caught up. What could have been a moment for unity and growth in LA's underground rap scene turned into another heartbreaking example of how fast success can fade when the past won't let go. Still, people who know YoungThreat personally say he had heart. He looked out for his people. He stayed loyal. And when the cameras were off, he was the kind of guy who'd give the last dollar in his pocket to help a friend. But in that same loyalty came the downfall. Sometimes the love for your block can cost you everything. And for YoungThreat, it cost him his freedom, his career, and maybe even his future. Right now, he's still fighting his case, and his team hasn't released many details. Fans have been flooding social media, saying they hope he gets another shot to change things around if he ever walks free again. Others think it's too late, that the streets already claimed him for good. Whatever side you're on, one thing's for sure. His story is a hard lesson about what happens when loyalty turns into a trap. The rap game in LA keeps moving, but it's impossible to ignore how many rising stars fall before they even get a chance to shine. Some people say it's the culture, others blame the system. But maybe it's a mix of both. For every artist like YoungThreat, there are dozens more who are one bad decision away from losing it all. And that's why stories like this need to be told. Not to glorify the street life, but to show how real the consequences are. Fame and money can't erase the past, and no song can undo a lifetime of choices. Maybe, just maybe, someone watching this will think twice before walking that same road. If you made it this far, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment down below. Let me know what you think about YoungThreat's story. Do you believe he deserves another chance, or do you think his path was already written? Either way, this one's a wild ride, and it's far from over. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, stay smart, and I'll see you in the next video.